Hello, my name's Julienne van Loon and I'm an Australian novelist. I'm delighted to be speaking to you as part of this program for the Sydney Mechanics School of Arts, the Thomas Keneally Centre and Varuna, the National Writers' House. I've written 3 novels to date and all of my fiction responds to how we live now. I'm interested in contemporary Australian culture and things puzzle me, and I think that this is really the driver for me for writing fiction in the first place. I always say that I like to think of fiction as a tool for thinking. So my project in writing is in part making sense of the world for myself in the first instance. And I think if we can reflect back to readers some sense of how we live now, then it raises questions, useful questions I hope, about meaning and about the direction that we're heading into the future. One of the things I've been thinking about lately as I work on my 4th novel is a quote from Joyce Carol Oates, and she has said, she's an American novelist, and she has said that she thinks of the novel as having dual citizenship. That is, of any of her writing as having dual citizenship, and that is that it is a product, yes, of the writer and the writer's experiences and events in the writer's life that have prompted a certain way of thinking, but at the same time its other citizenship is a sort of belonging to culture, to broader culture and to literature, and it becomes then a sort of both a product of and an engagement in the writing that has come along before. And then, you know, hopefully it becomes a contribution to the writing that will come after as well. And I think this is useful to think about. At the moment, I'm working on a manuscript which is already at first full draft stage. And so I'm going back to look at questions of structure and so on. But one of the other things that I'm looking at as I go back to reread is the particular texts that this piece I'm writing is engaging with out in the culture, both contemporary texts and texts that have come before. So to give an example, my work often engages with texts from the Buddhist canon because I have an ongoing interest in Buddhist philosophy, and in this particular book I'm rewriting some texts from 4th, 5th century China and placing those stories in a contemporary kind of context. So that's a literal kind of intertextual link. But I'm also engaging with other forms of Australian literature that I have read, that I go on reading, and I'm also responding back to writers like the contemporary American novelists that I like to read as well. And I think this is an interesting way to think about what you're doing as a writer. We get terribly caught up with the ego very often, that this is my book, this is what I have to say, this is my particular contribution. But it's useful at certain points as we look back over our work, I think, to think about what we're doing as both a form of dialogue, but also a product of what has come before. So we are produced as writers in light of the circumstances that we've been born into, that we've engaged with, and so on and so forth. And it makes you think a little bit differently about the kind of project that you're doing and who's in the driver's seat and why.